Hey guys, good evening and welcome to another edition of Coin Report. Today's report is going to focus on Cardano, one of my favorite projects in the space. Now, if you had watched my video a few months back on the best coins to watch for Q4, among them was Cardano, and there were various reasons as to why I held it in such high esteem. It was one of the coins that was being explored for listing on Coinbase, and being that Ethereum Classic, one of the other coins that's being researched and developed by IOHK, not that they control it, but they're one of the main teams researching it, it just naturally seemed to me that eventually, no matter how long it took, the industry, in particular Coinbase, was taking Cardano seriously, which was really nice. If you guys don't know the history of Coinbase, for a long time they really only ever offered Bitcoin. I believe it wasn't until about 2016 that they even started offering Ethereum. So the fact that they're expanding their horizons in cryptocurrency is certainly bullish for the space and a great thing for adoption. But I digress. Since that time, there have been a number of things that have happened to Cardano that have sort of suppressed the price. And again, guys, the whole market's been kind of sideways since, September, June. A lot of the altcoins are seeing a recovery in their price, kind of bullish momentum that you hadn't seen before. For example, there was coins like Nano, which back in September or August, I think was like 76 cents, which by the way, I was recommending a buy on. And it's kind of floated back now to around $2, so over a 2x. However, Cardano has struggled to regain the steam that it saw that pushed it to prominence back in 2017, and also kept it as one of the favorites in terms of the undervalued coins in the space. Now, undervalued is sort of a term that's hard to grapple with in that, it's still worth over $1 billion, and you have to ask yourself, right now, is it producing $1 billion worth of value? And the answer, like almost everything in cryptocurrency, is obviously no. However, fundamentally, there's tons of things you can look at in terms of future use case that give it value. For example, Amazon didn't really, generate its first profit until about 4 years or 5 years into its existence. It was the future stock of that company early on that gave it the value that many attached to it. And I think with Cardano, we have a similar situation. Finding a product market fit amongst the digital agreement / smart contract platforms is difficult, as the use case for dApps was in a huge way outpaced by the price of the platforms that were guaranteeing better performances than Ethereum. And there's just so many to choose from. You have EOS, you have Neo, you have Ethereum Classic that, as I mentioned previously, is being developed in part by IOHK. You have Icon, Qdom, Eternity. The list goes on and on and on, and there's new ones coming out every few months that are promising to solve the problems of scalability and other things that have plagued the smart contract platforms. And Cardano plans to do this in a number of ways. If you want to learn the technicals of the project, I have spoken on that before. However, I would encourage you to check out the materials that IOHK deploys themselves. They have tons of videos covering how Cardano is going to work in terms of the proof of stake, the transactions, the scalability. If you don't know, they are a multi-layered blockchain, so instead of having everything running off one layer, you're going to have a computational layer as well as a transaction layer. Which kind of pulls back to the point of that Cardano is aiming to be not the be-all end-all, as I don't think they're that narcissistic, but they certainly want to, often in this space we hear about how there's going to be dozens of protocols, a huge network of coins, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Neo, yada, yada, yada. However, what Cardano is trying to do is to answer all the problems that have been attached to cryptocurrency, solve them, and push the space forward in a way that sticks true to the principles that made it successful in the first place. Decentralization, immutability, and in a big way, transparency. A lot of the hype that you see generated around many of the platforms in this space simply is not matched by what they actually produce. I could name a number of projects, but I'm not going to name any names in this video. However, if you're watching this video, then you're probably watching it because you want to know whether or not now is a good time to accumulate your ADA. And the answer from that, for me, this is not financial advice, is yes. In terms of the projects that we saw emerge in 2017, a lot of them are down 90 to 95%. And in my opinion, it's a misconception to assume that all of those are going to see the same prices that they saw in 2017. It could be years before we see that recovery. In fact, when the NASDAQ crashed in the 90s / early 2000s from the dot-com bubble, I think it took the NASDAQ over a decade to get back to that level. Will the same thing happen in cryptocurrency? Perhaps. However, the important part here is that don't over diversify. Don't get too excited about a lot of the coins that came about in 2017. Most of them are probably going to wither and fade away. However, with Cardano, we have a great team of data scientists, a great team of engineers, a great team of cryptographers, etc. And if you look at the way the foundations of Cardano is set up, it's very positive. I love the way that they did it with, they have IOHK, which is kind of like, the Ripple company that's working on Ripple, or XRP, sorry. And then they have Emergo, which is their sort of rendition of consensus. And of course, they had the Cardano Foundation, which was kind of rocked by the nepotism and corruption that had grown into it. And because of the decentralized nature that Cardano is striving to achieve in their protocol, there have been some problems that plague all decentralized projects. You can compare it to EOS, which already has a working mainnet, a bunch of dApps developing on it, and a usable product. However, one thing we have to be very careful about in this marketplace is not to rush to market. Right now, there really isn't a huge market to cater to. There's a huge market of traders and speculators that want to get involved. But in terms of actual product market fit, we're still very likely years away from this technology really disrupting. And that disruption could take time. And Cardano is being very careful with the steps that they're taking to get there. They're trying to achieve all the principles that make cryptocurrency great, whilst working on the problems that made it, kind of slowed it down. And if you're as excited about proof of stake as I am, then you have to know that Ouroboros is one of the most positive proof of stake protocols in the space, even when it's compared to Casper. The strides that they're making in that regard are huge. And just to be clear, we're not entirely sure if proof of stake will even work on a mass scale in the long run. Right now, we have some projects that are running proof of stake, and there are sacrifices that are made when you switch to that. However, a development of proof of stake that sticks true to the original principles of distributed ledger technology or blockchain, whatever you want to call it, still hasn't really been conceived yet. So the fact that they're developing that with Ouroboros is really positive for the space. So what's the summary of the report, guys? Well, Cardano has been rocked by some problems, namely, as previously mentioned, the problems with the foundation. And they've been a little slow to market. And Charles, if you ever watch any of the AMAs, he's admitted to that. However, this space is going to take time before it evolves into the 20 whatever trillion dollar marketplace that all of you would love to see it become. And taking the right steps is the most important thing. And Cardano, in my opinion, is doing all that while sticking true to the principles that make cryptocurrency what it is today. Anyways, guys, that's it for today's video. If you want to know more, IOHK actually just recently did an update on Cardano and the progress that they've made so far, and it's a really great video. I'll leave a link in the description for that. And if you want to know more about the technicals of the project and where it's heading, well, one of the great things about Cardano is that they regularly update their roadmap. So I'll leave a link for that as well. Anyways, guys, stay safe, invest wisely, and cheers. Bye.